Welcome on into the Wolverine recruiting show. I am Clayton Sayfie alongside EJ Holland. We are going to break down the latest on this week's, kind of storylines here surrounding Michigan football recruiting. As always, we are brought to you by Lewis Jewelers. We're also brought to you by Manscaped. Remember to check out our content at thewolverine.com for premium content, insider intel. Use the promo code BLUE60. You get 2 months of our premium content absolutely free. You can interact with thousands of Michigan fans on our message board as well, which is always a fun time, always fun. EJ, let's talk about your trip out to Vegas over the weekend for the Mecca, the Pylon 7-on-7 tournament out there. Obviously, a lot came out of it. You were able to gather quite a bit. That's why the Wolverine.com comes into play there with the promo code BLUE60. But also, let's chat a little bit about it now here on this show. You were able to talk to Will Johnson, the 5-star Michigan commit. Also, Damani Jackson, USC 5-star commit, who was out there, who has obviously become friends with Will Johnson here through the recruiting process. They once wanted to be a possible package deal. Obviously, the Wolverines are still pushing for Damani Jackson, even though he's committed to USC. What is the latest there, and what were you able to gather?
Yeah, like Clayton said, I had an entire insiders package over at thewolverine.com, which you can read. Into the Blue comes out weekly. But, just to kind of give you some brief notes on it, look, Will and Domani still talk all the time. Obviously, Will flew out to Las Vegas and teamed up with Domani on Domani's team. And it was Domani that kind of invited him out there. So they, again, are just good friends. They talk all the time. They would still like to play with each other. If one is going to flip to the other one's school, it's not going to be Will Johnson. Will is really locked in with Michigan. He doesn't really see himself out west. So I don't think there's anything to worry about Will. If one flips, it would be Domani. Now, I'm not guaranteeing a flip. I'm not even optimistic about a flip. But I am somewhat optimistic that Michigan will get Domani on campus for an official visit. He's already talked about making an OV to Alabama, so it's hard to imagine that he wouldn't make one to Michigan, considering that he grew up a fan of the program. His dad's always wanted to catch a game at the big house. They have family in the Midwest. He's obviously great friends with Will Johnson. Maurice Linguist is a terrific recruiter. So it all makes sense for Domani to get on campus. Now, whether that happens on June 18th when Will's on campus for his OV, and so are other big targets like Walter Nolan, we'll see. If I'm Michigan, I'm actually kind of waiting it out and trying to get him on campus a little later in the process, maybe closer to that early signing period when Domani actually has to put pen to paper, definitely in for a game. Like I said, Domani grew up a fan of Michigan as a kid because his dad grew up a fan of Michigan. So I definitely think there's still something there, but I don't want to, get anybody's hopes up and say, I'm really excited about where, things stand. Look, Michigan just needs to keep doing what it's doing. Provide a lax approach with Domani. Let them know they're still interested and want him to get on campus. Let Will be the boots on the ground recruiter, and just kind of see how everything plays out. And you never know, if you get him on campus and Michigan has a big season, then we'll see. I mean, Domani was obviously very, very interested in Michigan, joined Will for that big self-guided tour weekend. And then a lot changed. Michigan laid the egg against Wisconsin. They ended up having a pretty terrible season. There were question marks about Jim Harbaugh's status. Michael Zordich, who is a fellow Ohio native, ended up, leaving the staff. So there was a lot of turnover, and Domani obviously committed to USC. But I think Michigan's answered a lot of questions. And if, again, they pick up some wins on the field, they get them on campus for an OV, you never know what can happen. But I can tell you that Will is recruiting his ass off. So we'll see how it all plays out.
I hate to break it to you, but I think you just got some people's hopes up there. So, I mean,
Probably.
it's inevitable, and obviously, your hopes should rise from like 0 to something more than 0. I don't want to even give a number there because I don't want to be held to that. But in terms of the fact that I think it's a good sign that he's looking to take official visits, obviously, to other places. And you've kind of said all along that, despite him choosing USC and pledging to USC, the door is going to be open for him to be recruited. Whether that means, he is going to flip somewhere, remains to be seen. But at the same time, the fact that he's at least willing to listen right now, and he has a good buddy in Will Johnson who is going to recruit him like crazy, as you mentioned, certainly helps Michigan's chances there. And we shall see as things progress. But obviously some great intel coming out of that trip. What else in terms of news and notes coming out of your Las Vegas trip were you able to gather when it comes to Michigan?
Yeah, just a few quick hitters. Sticking in the 2022 class, you see your guy right there, Cody Jones, to the left of Domani and Will, I guess, depending on what way you're looking at the picture. But anyway, he's to my left. But yeah, Cody, still really solid in Michigan. Looking forward to his June 18th visit, so he'll get to hang out with Will. And, Cody's putting in some recruiting work as well, primarily with good friend Walter Nolan. Both of those guys hang out all the time. Obviously, went and got a bunch of pictures of them when I took the trip out to Memphis last week or the week before, whatever that was. Anyway, Cody and Walter hang out all the time and they talk all the time. So I think Cody is a guy who committed early, and like Taylor Groves, there was a lot of worry that he could decommit and make some other official visits, but unlike Taylor Groves, who did end up decommitting, Cody seems really, really solid to Michigan. So I think that's really positive as well. Another 2022 target out there was Malik Ogbo, Rivals 250 offensive lineman, who, if you watched our last show, he actually played some jumbo tight end and scored some touchdowns out there, but spent most of the time just snapping and having fun with the program he trains with. But he is a big target for Michigan along the offensive line. I know he's all the way out in the Pacific Northwest, but I don't think he's staying out west. He has 3 official visits scheduled: Miami, LSU, Oklahoma. Obviously, all of those are far away from home. I think Michigan's in the running for one of his last 2 visits. Sherrod Moore stays in weekly contact with him. So that's definitely a positive. I know, right now LSU and Oklahoma probably have the advantage in that recruitment, but Michigan's still staying in the mix, and he recently named the Wolverines a top school. Transitioning over to the 2023 class, Dante Moore, again, was out there hanging out. He was on vacation, didn't really participate in the tournament, was just, aside, my assistant analyst for the day, I guess. But yeah, I spent a lot of time with Dante. He still has not had a chance to talk to Michigan quarterbacks coach Matt Weiss. Now, it is important to know that coaches cannot directly reach out to 2023 recruits per NCAA rules until September 1st. So any contact would have to go through either the high school coach or someone close to Moore, like Devin Gardner, who's his trainer, for example. But Michigan has not been able to link up Weiss and Moore. I would expect it to happen soon. Honestly, there's been a little bit of an overreaction to Weiss not having talked to Dante yet. But Dante was like, look, man, I don't even like the recruiting process. I don't even care. If he just wants to wait till September 1st, that's cool with me. Michigan's always going to be a player in my recruitment. So I'm not too worried. I think, Michigan, again, is going to be a top school for Dante moving forward. And he said he's looking forward to visiting at some point this summer. Leona Lefau, a 2023 linebacker from Hawaii that Michigan offered last month, told me Michigan and Utah are the 2 schools kind of standing out to him early on. He definitely wants to make a trip to Michigan in the summer, and that's big. He was one of the most impressive players at the tournament, was actually named the tournament MVP as a 2023 linebacker in 7-on-7, which is super impressive since 7-on-7 isn't normally very linebacker friendly. And considering you also had big time recruits out there like a Damani Jackson and Will Johnson, for Leona to win MVP of the tournament, I think speaks volumes of his talent and potential. So definitely a name to get familiar with in 2023.
Going back to Dante Moore just real quick, I got that same vibe, when I asked him about 3 weeks ago, the same question: have you talked to Matt Weiss yet, Michigan's new quarterback coach? And he said no, and I said, does that, like bother you at all or something like that? And he was like, not at all. I love Michigan. And yeah, he kind of basically said the same thing. Like, recruiting doesn't really matter to him that much. He respects all the coaches that are reaching out, but it's not a huge negative. So it's probably like more of a, I think you wrote this on the message board, like you guys to the fans are, more irritated by this than Dante Moore, certainly, and probably anybody else. So, and that's fair, I guess, for fans to look at it in a certain way, but obviously it's not a huge deal. And we will talk about some of Matt Weiss's recruiting efforts a little bit later on in the show in the class of 2022, specifically when it comes to quarterback recruiting. Let's talk about Sebastian Cheeks, but before we do, just want to remind people that this show is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. Let's see. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide, including ourselves. They sent us some product that we are loving so far. We have an exclusive offer for our listeners, 20% off plus free shipping with the code 20GOBLUE at manscaped.com. So 20GOBLUE, 20GOBLUE at manscaped.com. EJ, you liking your stuff so far?
Yeah, it's been great. They, one of the products they actually sent were some underwear, and they're like super high quality, the best underwear I've ever had. It's not, your normal Hanes that you get at your local Walmart. They're Supreme underwear, and they're feeling good and make me feel comfortable below the belt.
Definitely, especially with all the travel you're doing, you got to stay comfortable there. Manscaped.com, 20GoBlue is the promo code at Manscaped. So help us out by helping them out. It's a mutual process there. Our great partners. Let's talk about Sebastian Cheeks. You had quite the eventful weekend. So, before you went out to Vegas, I believe, right? You correct me if I'm wrong. You were able to see this man, Sebastian Cheeks, a 4-star linebacker in the Chicago area, who is now, when you look at Tyler Morris, who committed last week to Michigan, the Rivals 100 wide receiver, Sebastian Cheeks is kind of one of those next names that comes up in terms of Chicago guys. Can Michigan keep pulling guys? They got J.J. McCarthy in the 21 class, now Tyler Morris in the 22 class. So obviously Michigan has some pull in the Chicago area. But what did you see out of him when you were able to go check him out over the weekend?
Yeah, so I went out and saw Sebastian's game on Friday night before I flew to Vegas on the first flight out Saturday morning, and he was, impressive again. He plays more of an edge rusher role at the high school level, so basically teams spend 90% of the game running away from him or just reading off of him on some read options. So he doesn't see a lot of action come his way, but he did make a couple of plays backside, and his presence alone obviously alters opposing teams' game plans. He's a really athletic backer. I do think he's an inside guy more so than an edge rusher, but he has some flexibility to be a traditional outside linebacker. I prefer him inside just because I really love his build. He's built more like power lifter at this point than a football player. He's really chiseled. He has a chance to continue to add some really good weight and to already being 6'2", 215 pounds. Again, most of that is just muscle. He's really cut up. So I think he can add some really good weight to that frame. He's physical. He has really good speed and athleticism. Actually made a couple of plays at running back, picking up some key first downs. And he's not like a terrific cover guy at the linebacker spot, but he is really good in pass coverage. So I think he just provides a plus as an inside linebacker. As far as his recruitment, I mean, this has long been considered a Michigan-Notre Dame recruiting battle, but I do think other schools are definitely getting involved. North Carolina is becoming more of a threat. Texas has always been considered a dark horse, but I still feel like this is more Michigan, Notre Dame. As of right now, Notre Dame's been considered the favorite, but I feel like his interest in Michigan is only increasing. He has weekly conversations with new defensive coordinator Mike McDonald and linebackers coach George Hilo, and he is looking forward to scheduling his official visit to Michigan. He's actually never been to Michigan, so I think that'll help once he gets on campus. And then he is friends with Tyler Morris. They actually spent some time working out in the summer together. So they're definitely going to talk, and Sebastian was pretty excited about Tyler going ahead and making the call and siding with Michigan. So yeah, overall, I think Michigan kind of is trending up a little bit in this recruitment.
Definitely. There you go with Sebastian Cheeks, a guy Michigan's trending for. Another guy Michigan is trending for, EJ, I think we heard your cat as you were just talking. I think people can probably hear my dog barking. So there you go. It's an animal show, but I don't know if you can hear that. But Nate Johnson, another guy Michigan's trending for, the 3-star quarterback out of Clovis, California, dual threat guy. Obviously, you come like Matt Weiss, Michigan's new quarterback coach, comes from Baltimore, where they have Lamar Jackson, as everybody knows, and he's kind of pitching this similar, type of thing there to Nate Johnson, who we had an article with on the Wolverine.com, I believe, just last week, with him talking about Michigan's pitch, how much he likes the school, how much he likes the staff and the program. You decided to put in a FutureCast for Nate Johnson to land with the Wolverines. I guess first tell the people why, and tell us a little more about Nate Johnson, a guy that we've talked about a little bit here and there throughout the last few weeks as he started to emerge, but I think people are still kind of curious about.
Yeah, so I did put in a feature cast for Nate Johnson. Matt Weiss has been keeping in weekly contact. And just to make things clear earlier, it would be nice for Matt Weiss to get in contact with Dante Moore. He's definitely keeping in contact with Nate Johnson. They do talk weekly. We recently ran an interview with Nate where he said Michigan is the school standing out the most to him. He's scheduled an official visit for June 11th. That'll be huge. I think if Michigan can overcome the distance hurdle, because he is looking to make official visits out to Utah and Oregon State. I think if the distance hurdle is cleared, I definitely see him becoming part of the class. He's the only quarterback on the board right now, with Alex Orji recently coming off and committing to Virginia Tech. It's Nate Johnson as the number one guy. And Michigan has pitched him on being more of a Lamar Jackson type. The fact that Matt Weiss had an opportunity to work with him, the fact that Jim Harbaugh's coached some really good dual threat guys like a Colin Kaepernick in the NFL and has NFL experience, especially, being the former San Francisco 49ers head coach, and Nate being not too far away from San Francisco. He's obviously familiar with Jim Harbaugh's resume and his experience as an NFL coach. I think they're doing an excellent job with Nate Johnson. Look, Nate's not a high-profile quarterback. He is a true dual threat guy that has position flexibility. Some schools actually like him as a wide receiver. Some schools like him as a safety. So if quarterback doesn't work out, he is a really intriguing athlete. I believe he clocked a laser 4.45. So he has legit speed. He had over 1,000 yards receiving as a sophomore. So at worst, this is an athlete that can move elsewhere. But he does have a lot of upside at the quarterback position, and he does fit the mold of what Matt Weiss is used to from his time with the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. Again, biggest competition right now is Utah and Oregon State. Those are his only two other official visits. But again, if Michigan overcomes distance, I think they're the clear leader right now.
So he's the next Lamar Jackson.
No, definitely not saying that.
There you go. I just had to. I mean, I love our player, comparisons, and then you always get a guy on a message board or Twitter or whatever be like, "This guy's nothing like." We always use the Richard Sherman one. And it's like, yeah, we never said that. We're saying style, things like that. Matt Weiss is saying, "I've coached Lamar Jackson. I know what it takes to coach dual threat guys." And Jim Harbaugh saying, "I've worked with a guy like Colin Kaepernick and really made Colin Kaepernick a starter in the NFL and a guy who played well." Didn't play so well after Jim Harbaugh was gone. So he has the resume there, as you kind of talked about. So certainly not the next Lamar Jackson, but has some of those tools and is a dual threat guy.
If I were to give a player comp, it would be a less exciting one. I would go with Marcus, not Michael, Marcus Vick. And that would be kind of my player comp and would be kind of my expectations. A guy who had, obviously some off the field troubles, but had a pretty decent couple of years and played some wide receiver in the NFL, that would be my, expectation for Nate Johnson would be Marcus Vick.
So he's the next Mike Vick.
Marcus.
There you go. So, yeah, and I guess I shouldn't even have said it. Like, that's not even his player comparison, Lamar Jackson. But they're using the fact that they've, have experience coaching Lamar Jackson, and that's got to be exciting. I mean, I don't know if there's a kid his age, especially one that plays the quarterback spot, that doesn't like Lamar Jackson or isn't familiar and thinks it's fun to watch him. So certainly intriguing there. We'll keep an eye on Nate Johnson, but that FutureCast pick is in. I think we should have a sound effect for FutureCast picks, so we'll work on that as we go forward with some of these videos. But that is it for our recruiting show this week. We'll catch everybody next week.